Good evening, Sunday the 26th of May 2013. We're just coming out of commemorating 50 years of the Organization of African Unity, which was in 2002 transformed into the African Union at a memorable ceremony in Lusaka, Zambia. Good evening to all those of you that are watching us across different parts of the continent on Africa Unite. We'd like to say thank you so much to the over 9,000 people that were able to interact with us online, especially for Zambians in the diaspora regarding last week's interview. Thank you so much to all those that had something positive as well as negative. We do accept all feedback, as it definitely adds to building this particular program, as well as building the fundamentals of information and democracy within a setup of a country like Zambia. My name is Costa Mwamba. I'm your host on The Assignment. Now, while the debate on subsidies rages on, including on the streets of Lusaka, on The Assignment tonight, we look at Zambia's poverty reduction strategy, which includes investments in key economic sectors with a special focus on the overlooked rural development. The center stage of subsidy debate has been in the capital. We are told that this has really centered on the rich who should subsidize, or who should actually be subsidized, so that the poorer in the rural areas do benefit. But what is the feeling of such a move, as well as other developmental issues within rural areas? And this is what is expected to dominate tonight's discussion, with the permanent secretary of what is described as Zambia's poorest province, the Western Province, Mr. Emmanuel Mwamba, being my guest on The Assignment this evening. Permsec, good evening, and it's a pleasure to have you once again on this program.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Costa, and good evening to your viewers.
Thank you so much. For those of you that want to interact with us via text, you're free to do that on all mobile networks in Zambia. You're typing the letters TAS, a space, and your question or contribution to 3322. Online as well, you can visit our Facebook page. It's Ask Movie, and we'll definitely be able to interact with you in the next 1 hour or so. First things first, in the recent past, obviously, we did hear a number of issues rising from, we were promised the Barotse agreement, restoration after the election. We heard of looming splits in the Western Province. You came from the northern, I think, to eastern, then Western Province. How have you settled down? How's the situation in Western Province?
Oh, it is very calm. Mm-hmm. It's peaceful, ideal for development. You know, Western Province is the largest administrative region in this country. It is 126,000 kilometers square. It is the size of many European countries. So it is such a large area. But of course, we have the sad part. You are aware that on the UN, United Nations Human Development Index, Western Province and Luapula feature as the poorest provinces in the country. What does that mean? It means that people are poor, they are living below the poverty data line. The infrastructures such as schools, health centers, and roads are either so far apart or do not exist. So when sometimes we say poverty, people don't understand the extent of that poverty.
But the question is exactly that you've given this background of the report. Why do you think this is so? Is it justifiable for people to think that governments, the one you're serving under now and probably previous, have neglected these provinces? Is it something politically motivated? Why this poverty?
I think partly because we've neglected rural areas. Sometimes we think Lusaka is Zambia and Zambia is Lusaka. It is not so. As soon as you step out just a few kilometers out of Lusaka, you realize that this country is very vast, is very large. And the bulk of our people live in the rural areas. I think out of 13 million, about 8 to 9 million live in rural areas. And the neglect we see now has been consistent for the last 50 years. So I think there is now a market recognition that the rural areas are underdeveloped, the extent of poverty is very high, the existence and prevalence of extreme poverty is very high, and there's an attempt to shift development from Lusaka to the rural areas where the majority of the people are.
As a permanent secretary serving in this province, described by the report you've just given as one of the poorest, what are you doing as an administration to see to it that development is speeded up? Is it just enough to degazette districts? I mean, you've got a couple of them, Lukulu is among them, and so many within Western Province. What are you doing to stimulate growth in these areas?
I think His Excellency the President Michael Sata, has started very well. He's put focus back to the rural areas. One of the missing developmental project in the rural areas has been infrastructure. The districts are not connected by tarmac road to one another. That is very key for the supply of produce or the taking of inputs to the farmers, the ability to access schools, health centers, and other things. So the roads have been non-existent. You are aware that the President has launched a very ambitious road project. The Link Zambia 8,000 is, government is expected to do about 8,000 kilometers of roads in a period of 5 years. This project will cost about $5.7 billion according to RDA's estimate. Now, the bulk of those roads are in rural areas. To open them up, for example, Western Province, our neighbors are Angola. Huge trade potential there. The bulk of Angola is not developed. They receive most of their access through Western Province or Northwestern Province, but there's no infrastructure to allow this trade to boom. Our link to Namibia. So Link Zambia is catering for those.
The way you explain these things is quite interesting and gives hope for many Zambians. And this is talk that we've heard for such a long time. The ability or the potential for Zambia to do trade with Angola, that is oil-rich, and other neighboring countries. But the development we're seeing, for example, is the launching of a stadia in Western Province and a university. Is this the immediate need? Is it necessary for Western Province to have a stadia as part of priorities in development?
The university and stadium are not the only development initiative for Western Province. It's an overall picture to lift Western Province out of poverty immediately, not in the long term, not in the future, not in the potential. Immediately. The university, you know that this government was elected by young people. You know that the call for young people has to do with education and employment. You know, if we are to answer and reward and repay back the vote that the young people gave to President Sata, we have to attend to their needs. And one of the key needs is tertiary education.
I will become
the college spaces are limited. The university spaces are limited. We've been stuck for the last 50 years with 2 public universities.
But PEMSEC, it's a catch-22 situation. As much as people appreciate now the fact that the government is investing more into universities and upgrading colleges into universities, you also have a situation where you've got very few lecturers, very few clinical personnel to take off. You've been PEMSEC in a couple of rural areas. You tell us what the situation. In many cases, you have new hospitals without proper medical staff to handle patients. So people are asking, the more schools, the more hospitals, it's a brilliant idea. Do we have the staff to take care of them? 1. 2, you have so many graduates right now that have graduated from different colleges, but they have no jobs. So even as much as Western Province has a university, where are the young people going to get the jobs?
First of all, we should be like Nigeria's focus. Nigeria has so many universities. They say we'll give you a degree. Where you get a job is not our problem. And you have seen over the years that the UN...
It's not the problem of the government?
No, it is. Let me answer it this way in this focus. The United Nations and its bodies are populated by Nigerians, because Nigeria has been churning out all these degree holders for some time now. And they've gotten international jobs. So for education, you don't limit yourself to what is available. I think even when our forefathers went to school, those that were educated and got education in the 50s and 60s. Probably they were overqualified for the kind of economy in Zambia or in northern Rhodesia at that time, but they got an education and it paid much later. The thing is to give our people an opportunity, to give those young people an opportunity, which doesn't exist. You can't say we will not open a university until we have enough lecturers. That's not fair. Dr. Kaunda opened University of Zambia in 1967. He didn't even know where the lecturers would come from.
But that's the reality on the ground. That's the reality on the ground. And one would also further ask, being the permanent secretary, what potential does Western Province have in terms of its resources? We saw at one point a very thriving cashew nut industry under KK's time. This collapsed under the MMD rule. The fact that you've mentioned that we sit very close to an oil field in Angola. We've been told of potential of oil exploration in Western Province, gold in itself. Can't we begin to stimulate industrial growth for this province to be self-sustainable?
What I have done, what we have done in Western Province is to immediately revamp the cashew industry. If you go to the international market, $10,000 is the price of processed cashew per ton. This is copper now is $7,000. Cashew nut processed per ton is $10,000. And in Western Province we have 1.7 million trees. I have said let's revive these trees.
What is government practically doing? Because
this is what we're doing.
What are you doing as a government?
We first have initiated a program to revive the 1.7 million trees so that they can become productive. They are productive in a very small way, but we want them to become commercially productive. Under provincial administration, we have brought cashew seedlings from Mozambique under our program, and 2 Mozambican experts came with these 6,000 seedlings. We want to introduce also a breed that is faster, that is smaller, that is high yielding. So we are, for the first time in the last, 30 years, we are doing something about this potential of cashew nut. It was abandoned. And if you see the nuts, they just fall on themselves. There's no industry to get them up and sell them. I have said this is a gold mine Western Province is sitting on.
What is the timeline and how many jobs are we looking at? And the reason why we are not against the issue of a university, but one would be thinking that with this potential within the area, probably government should be supporting the fact that we could have a finished product, so a processing plant of the cashew and young people trained with artisan skills to grow and to process for us to be self-sustainable. So what is the timeline and how many jobs do we envisage to create?
I asked our colleagues from Cashew Nut Association, and the figures they gave me were so staggering. We can provide new 30,000 jobs in a year. The industry can earn up to $50 million. Now, these are not just figures being dreamed of. These are studies that have been undertaken. And what government has to do is to revive that industry. That is exactly what we're doing.
Has there been an investment, capital investment into this project?
Yes, there has been. It was small in a way. That is why we are bringing this awareness both to our colleagues, in Lusaka and government, and just to highlight the potential and the benefit that this can bring to Western Province. We have rice. Mungu rice is a very famous rice, but this is not an industry that has been properly propped up commercially, and I've said agriculture needs to reinstate the rice growing in its full potential. There was an investment that was done by the Japanese worth $8 million, and it has lain idle for the last 7-8 years. I've said, look, the irrigation scheme is already there, the infrastructure is already there. Why don't we support our farmers? So there are tangible things we are doing, and we are doing them head on. Western Province is poor, is a rich province. Its people are poor. For me, it doesn't make sense. And this is a people that keep natural livestock. You have the second cattle population in the country other than Southern Province is in Western Province. We have almost 500,000 cattle.
What about
that costa has been ravaged by diseases. We can't take our our cattle to
which
the market.
Of course needs to be controlled.
Yes.
Under the Ministry of Livestock and Fishery.
Yes, and the diseases were allowed to flourish and diminish the value of livestock. How can a people that keep cattle be poor? That's a paradox.
What about the prospects of oil and gold? Because we continue seeing a lot of foreign exploration companies coming through to say that Western Province definitely has the potential. I mean, borders are basically lines that we've put for ourselves as our people, but yes, artificial. But do they really flow underneath the ground to say only Angola has the oil, and up to the border of Zambia we can't see the soil? The prospects.
Costa, you are aware that government
plus uranium as well
issued licenses for mineral, oil and gas exploration to Western Province and Northwestern Province. The exploration are underway. This is something I've dusted up, and I've said let us follow which companies were awarded, where are they, at what stage are they, because this is a potential for this country. This country is resource starved. Our resource envelope is so small. Our needs are so large. So wherever an opportunity can rise, wherever it will be, whether it's in cashew, whether it is rice, whether it is oil and gas, we need to exploit that. So there was no focus on that. And as government, we are putting focus back to those issues.
So, P.S., when I hear you, on many of these issues, you do agree that the province has the potential to become an economic powerhouse, not only for itself, but for the country, and even for export into international markets. Gas, you're saying, oil, and so on. My question, again, is, then, is the stadium a priority of investment apart from us revamping the cashew that you talk about, $50 million that we can earn from that cashew? Is the stadium a priority over things you mentioned about, talking about uranium and all this? Because these have the potential for jobs.
Yes, Costa, Western Province is part of Zambia. The people of Western Province are entitled to sport. I have a football team that is currently in Division 1 and is organized by the community. Mongu Youth Sports Academy. They're entitled to sports. And the stadium we are putting up is a multi-facility zone. It's busy throughout the year. It's not only a football stadium. It's a soccer stadium with outlying facilities. And it's a great opportunity. Look at the Levi Mwanawasa Stadium in Ndola. Every time there's a football match, the bookings from Kapiri up to Chingola are full because there's this huge crowd that comes. So it brings out other investment that are not just visible when you look at the stadium. There will be an industry that will spawn out of the stadium. And for us, we are part of Zambia and we are entitled. If Zambians can watch a football match in Chilabombo, why can't they watch in Mongu? Mongu is part of Zambia. And one of the reasons people in rural areas feel alienated from Lusaka and Zambia is because everything happens in Lusaka, and it is not fair. The bulk of Zambia's population is out there.
So is this a development agenda, or it's basically aimed at creating a peace?
President Michael Sata has brought a comprehensive agenda, not only to Western Province, to rural areas. We are building about 11 new secondary schools. We have very old secondary schools in Western Province. Most of them run by the church, not even government-owned. The hospitals, most of them are mission hospital. Where has government been the last 50 years? So the president is building new district hospitals, is building new secondary schools, new primary schools, a university, colleges, a technical education and a college
let's not forget that this was a president who served as Ministry of Health at one point. So he's part of, if you're going to say this has not happened in the last 50 years, he's part of that.
No.
Yeah.
As Zambia, for me, I look at it this way. You have an experienced leader. He's had an opportunity to make mistakes and refine. And he probably is one of the leaders that will leave a better legacy for this country. For us that are in the rural areas, that are seeing what government and the president is doing, and then we come to Lusaka. So you find Lusaka consumed sometimes.
So you say that the past governments, including that of Dr. Chiluba, who you served under quite well, never took any development to rural areas?
The picture shows for itself. The rural areas are neglected. I'm coming from Lukulu right now.
Yeah.
If you go to the new districts of Mitete, you would think you are not in Zambia. It's a worst case scenario. First, the place is flooded for 6 months. You can't go, schools are closed for 6 months in Mitete. Hospitals or the health centers cannot evacuate, for example, a maternal patient to Lukulu Hospital under those circumstances. Some places take up to 14 days for a teacher to come and get paid. And you say, I am in Zambia here, and this comes to the new districts. The approach the president has taken of these new districts, many people haven't understood why the president has declared the last 30 new districts.
As you engage into explaining the issue of districts, I think the huge debate over the district aspect has been that it was not properly outlined. Every day the president would wake up and announce this. From a point of view of a person who's actively and practically on the ground, tell us your experience. These new districts that have been designed.
He consults very widely. Most of the submissions come from members of parliament or traditional leaders. By the time the president is making an announcement, it's not coming out of the blue.
My question was going to be...
Most of them are petitions from the local areas.
My question was going to be...
Costa, they can't access, for example, they can't get an NRC. They have to go 200 to 300 kilometers.
I know that, but my question is, the many people were asking to say these things were not budgeted for. So how are you executing, as a person on the ground, for example, you're a PS of Western Province, how are you looking at funding these new districts of Lukulu and so on and so forth?
I have got, in Lukulu, we have Mitete, that's a new district. In Kaoma, I have Nkeema and Luampa. In Mongu, I've got Limulunga. In Kalabo, I've got Skongo, which is on the borderline with Angola. In Sesheke, I've got Mwandi, Mlobezi, and Sioma. So, the way I'm looking at it and the way government has planned is that we do not want a declaration of a district so that it just remains in name only. For example, Shangombo was declared in 1986 and up to now it's not developed. The president has taken a different approach. He says we take development simultaneously, meaning ZESCO moves in, the water company moves in, RDA moves in, local authority moves in. We are all moving in at the same time.
Are these merely intentions on paper? Because yes, we do hear, even when the president was commissioning the stadia, he instructed ZESCO to say, I want you to pour a line into Shangombo.
Yes. And that's underway.
Yeah, but practically I want to find out from you, how much monies have you been allocated for these districts and what is the timeline? Because everybody is saying these are merely political pronouncements.
No, they are not.
Yeah.
First, there is allocation budgeted for the new districts. Number two,
how much does it take, for example, to bring from where, for example, the one district you mentioned in Lukulu or Mwandi, for it to get the status of a district? How much do we need and how much has been budgeted for?
Okay, let me give you a picture.
Yeah.
A new district has 250 new people from the district administration and the sector ministries, and it has also another 250 from the local authority. So you have minimum 500 people. This year, what government has budgeted for, since you're asking about the budget, what is in the yellow book? It has budgeted for a district administration block, civic center, and 10 new houses to each new district. Then ancillary development will come, like I'm saying. The infrastructure people like RDA, ZESCO, are also being told to align their plans, because they're already national plans to bring districts or places to the national.
And what is the timeline for this?
These are immediate, like the 10 houses, district administration, civic center, and to take about 500.
Are these underway
These
already?
are immediate. Yes, they are underway. As soon as districts do their narratives, you saw my Minister of Local Government, Madam Emerin Kabanshi. She was giving out 14 cars to local authorities. We've already purchased vehicles for the new DCs. And we're already employing, for example, Mlobezi. I have finished employing under Mlobezi. I'm going to the 8 new districts.
Yeah.
So these are real things. They are not imaginary. They are not mere pronouncements. These are happening.
That is fantastic.
People say that the president is talking about numbers that he has created 197,000 jobs. Where are they coming from? Multiply 30 new district by 500 people.
Yeah, but
that's the number that does. But PS,
but PS, that is money that of people who get salaries from being employed as civil servants on taxpayers' money, which is already an avenue where taxpayers are complaining that, first of all, we've got 600,000 plus people in formal employment, so you increase that. And this is government that has to pay these workers. My question is going to be, for example, when you build the capacity of these districts, they become fully operational as government wings. A tour into your province by Home Affairs Minister Edgar Lungu revealed, was it in Mwamba or the other place where immigration officers, for example, are sitting in a tent? Mwamba also is a bordering place. Our checking inflow of trade between Angola and ourselves, plus ZRA, we can't capture. But these are all sources of income for government. What are you doing about this?
Just last week, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Alexander Chikwana, opened an ultra-modern new facility at Sesheke border, bordering with Namibia. Full infrastructure with warehousing facility. We can do trade properly for the first time. We are opening up that line from Walvis Bay through Sesheke. And we've done the investment. We are doing the road links that will allow for that trade, for people not to go through Durban or Tanzania. And that border is now open. Namibia developed theirs, and we have finished ours.
How much do we emphasize to be reckoning in as a country per month or per annum?
Just that day, when the minister was opening, there were 35 trucks with goods and commodities coming into Zambia. People have seen an opportunity. First, it decongests, it's faster. Walvis Bay is much better. In fact, all imports from Europe and UK, most of them are coming through Walvis Bay. And all government needed was to provide an enabling environment. And the private sector themselves just move in.
Exactly. But PS, as much as we appreciate that you are explaining the issue of the digitization of districts, what are you doing very quickly in the losses that you're incurring? And maybe if you could be kind enough to share with us, how much are we losing? Because you have officers on the ground, for example, like the immigration staff, and they don't have offices. They don't have. We also saw police officers in one area, and they sit underneath a tree.
Costa, you are emphasizing what I've been saying, that when you work in the rural areas, you wonder if these places have been part of Zambia. The extreme conditions under which our workers work under is very sad. If you see the people we post to rural areas and to these extreme cases and the conditions they live under, you build a school without staff houses, where do you expect them to be? But there are many Zambians that are sacrificing under those conditions, living in huts, coming from villages, In Western Province, we say Mashasha. They come from a Mashasha and go to that health post. It is no wonder that certain health posts that are far-flung are not manned by professionals, because few are willing to live under there. But that is the condition and status of this country.
Let's get quickly.
So there is need for an investment, and an equal investment to rural areas. There is need for resource, to be directed deliberately for a long time. The neglect has been over the years.
Exactly. Before we get to the issue of subsidies, I must say that it is not only government's baby or job alone to bring about development in a country. What potential, first of all, lies therein in your province for the private sector? And what are you doing as government to create a conducive environment for private investment within the province?
For example, let me go to tourism. That's where we have the biggest potential, other than in rice, sugarcane, cashew nuts. All those are areas for the private sector. But we have tourism. There is that famous animal migration, the wildebeest migration from Serengeti in Tanzania to Kenya. It's a famous migration. The second largest migration of wildebeest happens in Western Province, in Liua National Park. We just need to advertise that. We have a Serengeti in Liua Park, and the population for wildebeest with the emphasis by His Majesty the Litunga, has been helping to curb poaching. The numbers have risen from 48,000 under a period of 4 or 5 years to 98,000. That is why we've become the biggest. We have a unique species in Western Province. A lot of unique species that are only unique to Western Province. The Barose floodplains is being declared as a heritage site by the United Nations, and we've reached far advanced stage with the UN.
But what policies are you putting in place if there's an investor watching, right now? Quick areas and what they should do.
I don't have enough bed space in Western Province. There's so much limited bed space. You should see when we have Komboka. So we need investment in hotels and lodges and inns. As government, we'll open up the places, we'll build the roads, we'll do the enabling environment. But the private sector needs to come and invest, in our national parks, in all these areas.
Let's get to the issue of subsidies. Quite a heated debate the last 2 weeks. From the person who is again on the ground in a province described as the most poorest. We are being told that the whole drive of these subsidies is to remove money from the rich and benefit the poor. Let's talk first of all agriculture. How are the people on the ground in Western Province receiving this issue? Because obviously this removal of subsidies was put in line with the Fiscal project under the MMD, where fertilizers and agriculture inputs were always given to peasant farmers. Let's get a feel from your province.
First of all, maize is not agriculture. And this is very significant to Western Province. Maize is not agriculture. You have planners in Lusaka planning for maize in Western Province, when what you need to plan for Western Province is, for example, rice, fishing. You need to plan for the environment that exists in Western Province. The investment we have done in maize through subsidies over the years has only damaged the other sectors in livestock, fisheries, and other cash crops. We've killed those potential. Maize is not agriculture. It's a small component. It's like what sports person cry about football, that football takes the lion's share of sports in this country. What happens is that the other sports suffer because we invest so much in football. I am satisfied with the removal of these subsidies. It will give an opportunity, for example, for rice is crying for the same attention. Sorghum, millet, fish, they're all crying for the same attention that we give to maize. And there is need to diversify.
Of course, as much as you say that maize is not agriculture, but you understand that this is our staple food that provides for food security. Essentially, what this has meant is the price of milli meal going higher. If you say that the removal of subsidies will in turn help other agriculture sectors, the PF is saying they're not pumping this money into other areas of agriculture, but into areas of roads, schools, clinics, and universities.
Let us discuss what has been removed. First, the fuel subsidy. Then the maize subsidy. The fertilizer subsidy, contrary to what is being discussed, has not been removed. On the fertilizer subsidy, a farmer contributes 50,000 kwacha. He's being asked to contribute another 50,000 kwacha. The cost of the fertilizer bag is about 240,000 kwacha. So government is still meeting the difference.
Yeah, but the argument was
that's just number one.
The argument on the fertilizer was that the intended beneficiaries were not benefiting. It was civil servants and politicians. So the entire Fiscal project, if I look at the release from the President's office, they have clearly tabulated how much we've spent in the last few years and how much was going into budget overruns. This is what they wanted to serve.
You cut me short on the fertilizer. I've just amplified on it. On the maize subsidy, the maize subsidy was the one that millers were benefiting in an attempt to keep the price of milli meal low. Government allowed millers to buy maize from FRIA sheds. We buy maize at 65,000 kwacha or 65 kwacha. The miller was buying at 50 or 55 kwacha. The difference, government was subsidizing. That's a subsidy that has been removed on maize.
Exactly, but at the end of the day, who feels, at the end of the day, I want you PS to answer this, because the PF government is peddling a reason of saying the removal of these subsidies, let's begin with maize, is to actually get money from the poor, from the pocket of the richer person to benefit the poor. Now, if you say, because of, and I love the way you've explained it, that the millers benefited the most on this maize subsidy, subsequently meaning that the bag per millimil will go higher for an end consumer.
Costa, let's go to the basics.
Yeah.
This country has a very small resource envelope. If you look over the last 4 years, how much is our budget? It doesn't exceed $5 billion.
Before we go to that, I want you to answer the question
in this fashion.
On the issue of from 50 kwacha to 70 kwacha per bag of millimil. How does the equation of removing the subsidy from the miller assist the end consumer in Lukulu or in Kawama or in Shangombo who wants to have a bag of millimil?
Let me explain, Costa. This country has very mega resources. We, as a country, we cannot afford to spend money, for example, on subsidies. This country doesn't have the money. First, the state of its poverty. The urgent need to develop this country requires that we use our resources prudently to productive sectors, to investing in infrastructure. The issue of subsidies is a luxury. Our people need to be educated for the betterment of this country, for the betterment of our children. We ought to do some of these hard measures.
I know that you're a civil servant and not a politician, but so I wouldn't want to drag you into other debates. Because if we say that the issue of subsidies is a luxury, there are a number of citizens watching out there saying by-elections are a luxury for this country because we have a limited envelope resource, like you say. A blotted cabinet is a luxury. Increment in ministerial salaries and presidential salaries is equally a luxury. How do you tell your friends to tighten their belts while others loosen them? So that is the other argument. But let's go to fuel.
Just on fuel.
As you talk about fuel, I want to ask this, PS. I would want the viewers to be enlightened this evening. Before the PF came into government, I conducted an interview with a very eloquent, world-renowned accountant and economist, Bob Sichinga, who for many years, came to Movie TV saying the solution and answer to Zambia's high fuel prices, which increases the cost of production, is to buy or revamp indeni and an investment of about 30 to 50 million US dollars. He said we should buy a cracker for indeni. He also spoke of options of wanting to build a line between Angola and Zambia through Western Province. As you talk about fuel, as a person practically on the ground, why is it not possible for us to invest and discuss with Angola the possibility of us connecting Angola to Zambia and get fuel cheaper?
In fact, Costa, the long-term solution to the cheaper price of fuel at pump filling station is our investment in indeni. The statement from the president clearly says that we need an initial $20 million to invest into indeni. Because you have a country that is importing finished product. That's very expensive. While indeni
sometimes we're importing crude feedstock.
So the biggest investment should be, for example, for fertilizer in NCZ. It's been abandoned for the last 40, 50 years. This government is investing back in NCZ to bring the price of fertilizer down. Because it means you'll be importing a finished product from South Africa or Iran at the cost of a farmer, or government will have to subsidize. We need to bring efficiency to the economy. And Honorable Chinga was correct. And that remains
but
the
this
long
is not
term.
being done. It's not.
It is being done.
It's not in any of the
president's statement
plan.
Says, no.
Yeah, we haven't seen it in any paper.
Yeah, now I wanted to just bring this matter on a fuel subsidy. His Honor the Vice President made mention that there were various attempts by the previous government to remove the fuel subsidy. And I saw protestation from some people that this was not so. I have a letter of intent by Zambia, signed by Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane, is on the IMF website. It's dated 24th November 2010. And Honorable Msokotwane stated that under item number 5, fiscal performance in 2010, he says as government faced additional expenditure pressures, which included transfers to the Food Reserve Agency in order to finance made purchases, the fuel subsidy early in 2010, which has since been removed. This is a letter of intent by government signed by Dr. Msokotwane. He is telling the IMF that he has removed fuel subsidy. You and I know that he didn't. You and I know that government acted contrarily to this letter of intent. So the issue of subsidies are unaffordable to this country. And there's been a debate for a long time.
Yes, as we debate this issue, yes, you're right, because during the First Republic, the issue of subsidies was there. Under Chiluba's government, there was a removal. Levy Patrick Mwanawasa reintroduced this, and that is the letter of intent. My question on fuel subsidies is like this.
No, this is 2010. This is under Rupia.
This is under, that's a letter of intent. That's a letter of intent because, yes, the subsidies were in effect, coming from President Mwanawasa's government. My question is, and many are asking, one, at a point where the subsidies were removed, the people of Zambia were not prepared and fully explained to as to why this was going to happen and in which time frame. It's like we announced this to say with immediate effect from midnight to night. The argument is, first of all, the international oil prices at this period went down, which means we expected that from the current cost structure and cost price of the ERB, we would have seen a reduction from the consumer point.
You wouldn't, because of fuel subsidies, whether the price went up or down.
But it has been...
The price is being maintained at the pump price.
P.S. You wouldn't dispute that in the recent past we've seen an escalation in pump prices due to factors on the international market. It has happened. So that's.
Let me answer the general question.
I just wanted to outline the argument. I just wanted to outline.
This country should know where it is coming from.
Just hold on, PS. I wanted to outline this fact on the international oil price. Second is the issue of the removal of excise duty on the importation of crude, and we're told that some companies such as Midlands are benefiting from that. But by and large, our cost of fuel is about the highest within the region per pump price. There are so many tax components in our fuel cost pricing. The PF, when they were campaigning, coming into government, one of the first things they did is commission an inquiry on ERB through Justice Minister Winter Kabimba. Part of the terms of reference, obviously, if you remember, were to say they wanted to investigate the rot and the anomalies within ERB. The fundamental objective was to see to that after this commission gives its recommendations, the end user would buy fuel at a cheaper price.
That's the intention.
Yeah, but they've done exactly the reverse.
No, listen, it's short term.
Yeah.
The investment in indeni will still bring down the cost of fuel at the pump price.
When?
We are bringing in finished products. That's why government is making all these hard decisions that might appear hard at the moment, because there are fundamentals we have to attend to. Coming to the subsidies, I think we need to remind ourselves as Zambians. Dr. Kaunda practiced subsidies for 27 years. This country, as at 1991, was on its knees with a huge debt of $7 billion. Unless you want to walk this country back, the damage that are done because of subsidies lasts beyond even our lifetime. This country ought to begin to make very hard decisions, like the decision that the president has made.
But PS, on behalf of the Zambians, yes, subsidies were budgeted for and they are being removed as a stimulus to saving.
No, they were not budgeted for. The president's speech statement does show.
The former finance deputy minister here said they had budgeted for them for. He was here last week and he said they are going to serve close to 300 billion kwacha per month on both fuel and maize subsidies.
Okay.
He said it was in the budget.
What I am disputing, Costa, is this.
No, he said it was budgeted.
For example, we budget for maize purchases from under the fiscal.
If it was not budgeted for, where's the saving coming from?
Okay, let me tell you this. Yeah. If, for example, under 2011, we budget that to buy maize worth 500 billion, and we spend 3.3 trillion Who's meeting the difference?
It's government, and hence
who is government?
Where the people?
Where have you gotten the 2.5 trillion from?
Whether you are borrowing?
Do you know that that means certain sectors have suffered? When you see that there is no medicine, or that the roads are bad, or that schools or salaries are delayed, where has it come from?
I love that argument. And my next question...
There is always something somewhere suffering.
I love that argument. And my next question...
The budget overrun cost over just the last 3 years.
Is caused by poor management.
To the excess of, is it $500 million?
The budget overrun is caused by poor management of those in government. Because my next question is, as much as we are saying we remove subsidies and save to pump into other sectors, what is government doing in the billions of kwacha that we keep on losing and revealed through the Auditor General's report? Misapplication of funds. Money meant to build a hospital is used for workshops. Money meant to do something. People abuse fuel. People abuse talk time. What are we doing as a government? Should the citizens sit idle and say, okay, let them plunder and misapply money in the Auditor General's report, but let them remove subsidies?
No. I think the abuse of resources, the president has been very clear. He's cancelled certain workshops. But
no government has ever worked on the recommendations of PAC and the Auditor General.
No, we do.
Yes, you appear before that committee.
I do. I make decisions. No. I fire people. I do.
How much have we retrieved from the misapplication of the billions in the Auditor General's report?
Costa, your argument just brings to the fore that there's an opportunity to address the problems of this country in a fundamental way. The abuse of resources, the wastage expenditure, the investment on consumption, because most of these subsidies are on consumption. For example, you know that there are a lot of subsidies still going on. You know, for example, at the university, most of our students are subsidized to the extent of 100%, to the extent of 75%. You are aware that ZESCO is subsidizing the consumer. They are supplying electricity to below the cost, both to us, the consumers, and to the industry.
Due to the lack of investment.
There are many subsidies still going on. But you brought to the fore an issue, is that we should not act on one matter in isolation. We should act on a whole range of things that have gone wrong. And I think that's what
as you explain, the bigger worry by some economists and your critics of this decision is to say fuel is a very critical driver of economic growth. We both understand that once the cost of production is high, the World Bank surveying Zambia out of 180 countries ranked us somewhere close to 100 with so many bottlenecks as regards the cost of doing business. We have very high cost of production. Now, if subsidies are removed and saved to pump into other sectors, you agree that the cost of production and other commodities will go high. How will the PF government handle this? Because commodity prices definitely will go high.
No, for any hard decision, there are short-term consequences and short-term measures. I think the effect of high pump price at the moment is temporal. It's temporal. When government does its investment in indeni, for example, if government does its investment in NCZ, you will see the price of both fertilizer and price of fuel come down. That is inevitable.
But what time frame? And again, do you agree with the argument of some of your government colleagues that this move is meant to hurt more of the rich people? I mean, that's the argument we're being given.
The trouble with engaging in debates is that you might win the argument, but not have the truth. You know, so sometimes people are eloquent at winning argument. This is not about an argument. This is about the life of our people.
This is about making people understand. Yes. Are you saying that subsidies will not affect us, the poor people?
It will affect everyone. Yeah. You were buying fuel at 8,000 kwacha, you were buying it at 10,000 kwacha a litre. There's an immediate effect. But we should look at the long-term, both medium, short-term and long-term benefits for this country. This country, like I told you, the extent of its poverty, for example, Western Province, we have up to 81% people that are poor. And when we begin to fritter and waste resources in that manner, we are not being fair to the people of Western Province, to the people of Luapula, to the people of Zambia.
As we go to the SMSs, the president did instruct that you, the government officials, explain, clearly this message. Because I think for me, this is where the gap has been. It's making the people understand. How is this matter being received in your province, where you're PEMSEC, the issue of subsidies? Because subsequently fuel prices will also go high, and depending on distance, it might be even higher than what it is in Lusaka.
I think our people in the rural areas have a separate discussion. What they want is a health center near. Are their mothers giving birth? Are their children going to school? When they go to a hospital, are they finding a doctor or a qualified person? That is a debate we engage in the rural areas. Is that how productive will they be if, for example, they want to farm rice? What benefits will it be if we invested in fish? Those are the things they ask, the economic questions, and government ought to attend to it. When you are in Lusaka, the politics take over. Even an economic debate like this, even economists who know that subsidies, especially on consumption, is not sustainable, who remember how far our country went to its knees by 1990, who still just debate. For me, that debate is not productive. Let us, for the first time, change the lives of our people. If His Excellency the President has chosen to make this hard decision, we might not be eloquent in explaining it, but it is for the benefit of the people. Here we are making these savings, and let's just look at the scale of the figures. In 2012, we invest 500 billion. We spent 1.1 trillion, a budget overrun of 681 billion. This is $100 million. I don't know what you can do with $100 million to our people that are living below $1 a day. If you look at how much we spent in 2011, we budgeted for 485 billion.
That was on subsidies.
Yes, on subsidies. Yeah. The expenditure on subsidies and the budget overrun that come with them. Because people sometimes don't realize that there is a huge cost.
Exactly,
and this is on one single crop. And also for the fuel subsidies.
As we talk about those subsidies and how much was being inputted into that, wouldn't we then blame the people who designed these things for failing to manage the process? Because just hear me out. We cannot say that even we've heard the Americans coming to say that yes, subsidies cannot be sustained in the long term. I'm not an economist, but what many of the economies have done is to subsidize farmers, for example, to stimulate them to be able to be independent in the long term. When
subsidies to the productive sector, which we have been doing.
When Africa and Zambia, being part of that, was trying to negotiate trade with European countries under the EPAs, one of the biggest challenges was that we wouldn't compete. Why? They subsidized their production, and the quality of their goods was higher than ours. So, in short, if we say fertilizer never reached that peasant farmer because somewhere a political party cut a siphon that, or civil servants mismanaged the whole process, would we then not say that the idea of subsidies was good, but we have failed to manage the process? No. Because it was meant as a stimulus package.
Costa, let's not lose sight.
Yeah.
This country doesn't have money.
But what was the rationale? What was the rationale behind
the little mega resources we have as a country? Let us spend them on things that will change this country.
Let's go to the rationale.
And the life of our people.
What was the objective of these subsidies? Was it not to stimulate growth in these areas? Of course, you don't subsidize them forever.
You saw Msokotwane discussing in 2010 to the IMF and promising them that he has removed subsidies on fuel. That he had reduced the subsidies going to on the Fiscal program, and he didn't do that. Very few politicians would make a hard decision.
Yeah, but again, my question is, what is the rationale of the subsidies? Why do governments put subsidies? Is it not to stimulate?
Going back to the debate of subsidies, there are various subsidies. To the productive sector, to the consumption to bring the price of a good low, there are export subsidies. There are many sorts of subsidies. But usually it's to influence the ultimate price. If this country had money, if we had huge reserves, maybe like South Africa, we can afford the subsidies. This country doesn't have the money. And look at the needs. Look at the extreme poverty. Look at the underdevelopment. Look at the lack of infrastructure. The needs for this country are so high and so urgent. Look at the millions of young people looking for jobs. And they want solutions from government. And you not create jobs if we are, for example, spending so much on consumption subsidies.
But we're misapplying funds meant for projects.
Any misapplication, I think we are very firm on that. The president is very firm on that. He doesn't want corruption in any process. He wants us as public officers to be accountable. He doesn't want those audit queries impressed. He's very categorical on all those things. But my point, Costa, is that this is a poor country. Let us use our resources better.
A rich, poor country, like you've just told me, of the potential of your province.
The potential is so high. It needs to be, jump-started.
Yeah.
It needs to be jump-started for us to be
Let's quickly take into what the viewers are saying this evening, both on our Facebook page online for Zambians in the diaspora, as well as those watching on Africa Unite TV, also those watching in Zambia via, text on the 3 mobile networks. Very quickly, let's get the text messages this evening. Director, if we can have those text messages, questions, contributions and comments. We're discussing the opportunities for rural development and investments in the rural areas. My guest is the Permanent Secretary for Western Province, Mr. Emmanuel Mwamba. Can he explain what PF and him as a representative is doing to encourage the traditional leadership to avail land to investors, whether local or international, to encourage investments in the Western Province? As long as they do not open this resource financing, opportunities will continue begging, and so shall development. That's Phil Lubea. A question to you on land. P.S. There is an investor who wants to set up a shopping mall in Mongu, somewhere near Imwiko Basic School. But the school authority, it is believed, are preventing this investor to go ahead and put up an ultra-modern shopping mall at that site. What is your office doing in order to help this investor find an alternative site so that at least Mongu can have a mall, as well as which, of course, will be a source of employment for so many young people? That is Kebi, Kalima, the issue of a shopping mall there. May I know, PS, what has been done in Sikongo district since it was created as a district? Nothing has been done so far. No network, no power. What a living in the 21st century. That is Cynthia Soko coming through from Sikongo. PS, what opportunities are there for rural areas as we wait for the money for subsidies to be implemented? Because you are saying it is a long-term measure. Now I want to know the short-term measures, because things are not okay at the moment. That is from Nathan Mwansa. Okay, let's quickly get another SMS. The home of one of Zambia's main tourist attractions, Kuomboka, has been neglected for so long. Where does the money generated by Kuomboka ceremony go to? The ceremony has been done for many years now. What does PF intend to do to ensure the ceremony develops Western Province? That is Nayunda Swali. Okay. Income from Kuomboka. Does government have any plans of working on the Kaoma Lukulu Road? That is from Augustine Nyambe. Mr. PS, please, may you tell the people of Western Province, particularly Lukulu, when you are going to start working on Lukulu Road, because 2013 is ending now. That is from Joseph K. Ndemuna. So the issue of roads there. Let's quickly get the last two, please. PS, road cannot be compared to maize. This is a staple food for all Zambians. That is coming through from Kayona. The last one, nice programs from you, Movie TV. Road development in Zambia is pathetic. Why is it that Zambia is good at paperwork and poor at practical? Let us see opportunities for rural areas. We are not in animal farm. That is HS in Mwenza. Let's stop there, Director, for now, and get the PS to respond. I'm a teacher here in Shangombo district. My concern is the mode of operations we operate under in the district. Teachers in the district are transferred on a yearly basis. Despite them being transferred like that, their settling in allowances ends up in promissory notes. That's the second part of this message. Secondly, monitoring is only done to schools along Senanga, Sesheke Road, but not to those in the interior of Shangombo. Okay, we still get, it's a very long SMS. Thirdly, is it right that when one wants to go for studies, should apply through the office of the DEBS, or when one wants to sit for GCE, should apply to the same office? Let me also find out if it is also happening in other districts. Teachers here have been directed to contribute 100 kwacha towards extra co-curricular activities. The last part of this text, my question is that if this was agreed by government, does the government have a heart for its teachers with the peanuts we received. Is it in order also to transfer someone who has not clocked 2 years at a station? These district officers have been slow in completing the structure and not that there are no funds. Okay, so teachers' issues. Maybe let's stop there. P.S. A teacher from Shangombo there.
Clearly, I'm glad that Western Province is listening. I'm glad that they've literally highlighted the difficulties we are facing. On infrastructure, under Link Zambia, we are doing Kasempa to Kaoma. We are doing Kaoma to Sesheke through Mulobezi and Chile. We are doing Katunda to Lukulu district. So we are doing a lot. Most of those places will be opened up. Each district will be connected to a tarmac road. The difficulties our people are facing, the teachers and the health workers, this is something I'm following up. They are already living under adverse conditions, and I want to better their conditions. I want to remove the corruption that has been existing, the inequalities. So some of the issues were so local, they can just get in touch with me. My number is so wide, I give it to wherever I go, wherever I've been. I've toured all the districts, and I'm going to Kalabo next week. So I'll ask them to get in touch
with you, the teachers.
On the shopping mall.
Before you get to the shopping mall, I wanted you to address the issue of the fact that somebody was asking you that you have explained clearly on the aspect of the subsidies and your long-term benefits, but they're asking, what about the short-term? Because they have spoken about things being so expensive. So what do we do in the short term?
You know, the damage that has been done to this country, it didn't occur when President Sata came into office. It's development areas for the last 50 years. Zambia will be 50 next year. The things have culminated to today. They didn't go wrong last year or yesterday. It's a culmination of neglect, for example, for the last 50 years. Lack of investment in this country for the last 50 years. So they are now on the doorstep of the president, and sometimes he has to take hard decisions. But these hard decisions will benefit this country, will put this country on a firm footing, a good foundation for development, and to lift our people out of poverty.
There was a question regarding Congo. I mean, you were trying to explain here the issue of immediate development into the newly formed districts, the 10 houses, the vehicles, and so on. The person from Skongo says they've seen nothing.
Yeah, we've already appointed a DC for Skongo. I have a vibrant young man, Kufuka. He's going there. You know, we are jump-starting together with local government all these infrastructural developments so that they are done at the same time. There's even a model to pick the 5 new districts in the country and also accelerate development for them. So there are many things that are being done.
The shopping mall.
The shopping mall, I have invited business persons to my office, including the developers of those shopping malls, and I've given them alternative land. We are encouraged by the warm relations we have with the Barose Royal Establishment. It is very warm. We work together closely, and they recognize the difficulties of our people in Western Province. They wish to open up land.
The issue of land. Somebody was complaining. So, P.S., what are you doing about the issue of engaging the traditional leaders as regards investors accessing land?
Let me give 2 examples.
Yeah.
The president gave us a stadium and a university, and the traditional authorities have given us land for both items. This is a warm relationship that is there, that is allowing us to work together and develop Western Province. And I think I have been to Northern Province, I've been to Eastern Province. There is an urgent need by all our people in rural areas to recognize what has gone wrong in the past and to forge hands with government and see what can be done.
Finally, somebody was asking what can be done to the income of the Kwomboka to benefit the province. Where does the income of the Kwomboka go?
Kwomboka, first, there is no levy. You know, the benefits are abstract because lodges, food and stuff like that benefit than a direct income. But I think the BRI and His Majesty the Litunga have a plan of how, for example, when we have the Kwomboka, how ordinary houses can be opened up to host these thousands of people that come, teach them in basic services, let them have health and water and sanitation issues, and open them up. As we are waiting for people to build hotels and lodges, ordinary people can still benefit. So I think what was lacking in the past was to coordinate all these activities. People like working in isolation. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So I bring all the parties together, all the traditional leaders together, all the business parties together. I hold very regular meetings with both our staff, civil servants, because even them, they were working in isolation. What the gentleman in agriculture is doing, and the gentleman in education, the gentleman in health, they didn't know, they were not speaking to one another. For example, one health post would not be open because ZESCO hasn't connected power. So I bring them together in one room every Monday. And I said, what was budgeted for this year? Where are we at? Why haven't the projects taken off? There were these issues. For example, there were these transfers. What are we doing about it? So we are sitting together to work together. I see regularly all authorities, whether BRIU or any other traditional leaders. I think that is a way to develop this country.
Piers, thank you so much.
Thank you, Costa. Thank you for the lively interview.
Thank you so much. Well, viewers, thank you so much for your support all the time. Like I said, once again, our producers are working very hard to see to it that editions of each Sunday's interview are put online, especially for those that want to view them on our website, which is www.movietv.com. For those in the diaspora, Africa as well, thank you so much for the support. We had over 9,000, people having to download and view our interviews, millions as well commenting and texting. Thank you so much for that usual support. Next week as well, we'll be engaging government from the second highest officer's honor, the Vice President, will be on set on the assignment next week. Like we say, you the viewers are indeed the judges. Will only help you pass that verdict. We'll see you next week. Good night. God bless.